We're going to go ahead and skip this page. We're going to jump to page 118. So 118. All right, so we're going to start off by doing percents as decimals and fractions. Okay, we've already done this. Okay, we did that last week. Now, they're going to give you percents that are greater than 100%. Okay, so like 120%, 113%. And then everything less than 1%, so a decimal. All right, so once again, we can just move the decimal point. So if it's a percentage already, so if they already give you the percent symbol, remember we're dividing by 100 technically, so we have to move the decimal to the left. So whenever you have the percent symbol, you always go left first. So then you fill it in, and then your answer is 0.002 as a decimal, but then we can turn that into a fraction. What place value is this in? Thousandths. So it goes 2 over 1,000. Can that be simplified? Yep, divide by 2. Okay, you're going to do the same thing for when it's over 100%, 170%. Okay, you can still do the same movement with the decimal. Because there's a percent symbol, we can move it to the left. 1, 2. Now it comes out as 1 7/10, 1.7. So if we go to make this a fraction, or a mixed number, what do we do with this 1 that's in front of the decimal?
Make it 100.
Oh.
No, you put it as a mixed number in the fraction.
Okay, you put it as a mixed number. It's our whole number in front of the fraction. It goes straight to our answer. We don't have to worry about it anymore. Now, we're looking at the 7. What position is the 7 in? Naomi? Well, yes, but what place value? Tenths. So it'd be 7/10. 1 7/10. All right, so let's go down and look at A, B, and C. So we're going to look at these together. So the first one we have is 0.25%. So it's less than 1. So we have 0.25%. So they want us to make this a fraction and a decimal. So we got to do both. All right. So since it's already got the percent symbol, which way do we move the decimal? To the left. How many times? Twice. 1, 2. What do I put in these empty spots? Zeros. So our answer now is 0.0025. 25 10,000ths. Okay, so that gives us our place value by just reading it. So here's our decimal form. Now we got to turn it into fraction. So what place value is that? So look up there if you have to. 10,000. So it's going to be 25 over what? 10,000. Can we divide anything out of those two?
Yeah.
What? Let's try 25. So 25 divided by 25 is 1. So let's make this easy on us. How many times does 25 go into 100?
4 times.
How many zeros are left over?
2.
1 over 400. Okay, so it's just like last week. You're still just moving the decimal point and then finding the place value. Makes things a lot easier. All right, or you could do since it's a smaller than 1, you have to move the decimal. Turn it into a decimal form first. Then turn it into a fraction. All right, let's look at letter B, 300%. Okay, so now we have one bigger than 100. Okay, there's a couple different ways to do these. Since it's bigger than 100, we can start out by putting this into a fraction because it makes things a little bit easier. But I like turning it into a decimal first. Okay, decimals make it a little bit easier to turn it into fractions because we go off place value. So once again, this decimal's at the very end of it. Which way do I take it?
Left.
Left. How many times?
Twice.
1, 2. So when that symbol's there, we always go to the left. So now it's just 3. That's your decimal form, 3. All right, you can put 3.0 if you want. You do not have to. Now, what is this going to look like as a mixed number?
3 and 1/3. Or 3.
Just 3. There's nothing behind the decimal point, so we don't have to worry about anything. It literally just becomes 3. So if there's a 0 after it, 0 means nothing to us. Okay, it's a 0. There's nothing there. All right, let's look at letter C now. 530%. Okay, so now this is definitely bigger than 100. So, once again, let's turn it into a decimal form. So, how many times do I move it? 1, 2. So now we have 5 3/10. So there is something after the decimal. So there is going to be a mixed number now. It's not just going to be 5. So, what do we do with this whole number that's in front of the decimal? So it goes straight to our answer. Okay, now we're looking at what's after the decimal point to change it into a fraction. What place value is this 3 in? Tenths. So it's 3/10. Can that be simplified? There's your answer. Okay, so even if the percentages are larger than 100% or smaller than 1, you still follow the same steps. It's just the numbers are bigger and smaller now. That's the only difference. All right, so let's jump over, and now we're going to switch gears and go to make them a percent. So they're going to give you a mixed number and a fraction to change it into a percent. So what you do is, if you can, try to get the bottom to be 100 like we have in the past. Because what are all percents out of? 100. So let's look at letter E. So we're going to look at letter E now. So letter E is 2 9/10. So all we have to do to this is make it a percent. All right? So the good thing is that we automatically know that this goes in front. I like to turn them into decimals once again. Okay? So this whole number goes in front of our decimal point because it's a whole number. Now, 9/10 literally just goes right here. 2.9. But this is still not a percent. So if we want to make it a percent, I want to move the decimal how many times? 2 times. Which way?
To the right.
To the right now, because I want to make it a percent. So 1, 2. 290%. It is a lot easier to change it into decimal form because you just do that decimal movement. Okay, it's a shortcut. It makes things a little bit quicker. All right, let's look at letter F now. So letter F, we have 3 2/5. So once again, where does this 3 go? In front of the decimal. Now we got to look at this. Is that a 10 on the bottom? No. Can we make it a 10? Yeah, times what?
2.
Whatever you do at the bottom, you got to do the top. So now we have 4/10. So that just means it goes directly behind our decimal point. So now we got to move our decimal to make it a percent. Which way do we go? How many times? And then fill in your empty spot, 340%. Okay, always turn it into a decimal first. It just makes things a little bit smoother. Okay, especially when they give you the decimal form. So like down at the bottom, we have G, H, and I. G is 2.5. Okay, so since it's already in decimal form, all we have to do is move the decimal. Which way? To the right. How many times? 1, 2. 250%. Okay, H. Okay, so now, still decimal form. So we're still just moving the decimal to the right 2 times. 1, 2. So now it's 0.4%. So you can still have a decimal within a percent. So that decimal goes in front of the 4 because we moved it. Okay, letter I, same thing. 16/10,000ths. So all we're doing is moving this decimal. 1, 2. So that decimal actually went in front of the 16 now, so it's 0.16%. Yep. That's it. So why don't you guys jump over to page 120. And with a partner or by yourself, I want you guys to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're just changing. So 1, 2, 3, you're changing into a decimal and fraction. 4, 5, and 6, you're changing them into a percent. So they start 1, 2, and 3. You're starting with a percent and changing it into both a fraction and a decimal. 4, 5, and 6, you're changing it back into a percent. All right, so go ahead and get busy. I'll give you a few minutes. All right, here we go. So number 1, we have 325%. So we want to make that a decimal and a fraction. So 325%. So let's first start off by making it a decimal. How do we do that? Who can walk us through that? Silas.
You just put a decimal behind the number.
Behind the 5, yep.
Then you move it over twice.
To the left.
Yeah.
1, 2. So we get 303 and 25 hundredths. So that's your decimal form. Now we got to turn this back into a mixed number. So what's that going to look like?
3.
So the 3 is the whole number.
Yeah.
And then what place value would this be in?
100.
So it'd be 25 hundredths. Can that be simplified?
Yes.
Yes. By what?
By 25.
By 25. Okay, so you get 1/4. 3 and 1/4, 3 and 25 hundredths. Okay? All right, number 2, 480%. So doing the same thing. So we got to move the decimal point. 1, 2. So you get 4 and 8/10. All right, now we got to make this a fraction. Put it down. So that 4 is the whole number. Now, what place value is that in? The tenths. So it'd be 8/10. Can that be simplified?
Yes.
Yes, by what? 2. So you get 4/5. And now the one is 0.6%, 0.6%, smaller than 1. So we still move the decimal. 1, 2. Fill in our empty spots. So our decimal form is 6 thousandths. So that would be 6 over 1,000. Can that be simplified? Yes, by what? 2. So you get 3 over 500. Any questions on 1, 2, or 3? So changing both of those into fraction and decimal form. Turn it into a decimal first. Makes things a little bit easier because then you're just working with place value. All right, let's look at 4, 5, and 6. Now we're making them percents. So we have 1 and 4/5. So the good thing is we're going to change this to a decimal. That 1 automatically goes in front of our decimal. Okay, now we need to get 10, 100, or 1,000 on the bottom. Can we get 5 to be 10?
Yes.
Yeah, times what? So we get 8 over 10. So then that 8 just goes right here. We're not done yet because we got to turn it into a percent. So that means we got to move the decimal to the right 2 times. So it's 180%. All right, number 5. Now we have 0.0015, 15 ten-thousandths. All right, so we just move the decimal. 1, 2. So it's 15 hundredths of a percent. And you don't have to put that 0 there if you don't want to. As long as you have the decimal in front of the 15. All right, and number 6, 2 and 75 hundredths. So 1, 2, 275%. Any questions on this? Yes.
Where it's like 1,500%. Is it like 1% or?
It's less than 1. So whenever you have a decimal, that means it's less than 1. I always think of it as like money. So this is like 15 cents. So everything less than 1, like $1, is change. Okay, that's how I always look at decimals. All right, any questions on this? All right, so what